The time is now 3 o'clock. On Friday, June 28th, I call to order the Lisle Library District Personnel Policy Committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Thomas Duffy.
Here.
Emily Swiestack.
Here.
Thomas Hummel.
Here.
Tatiana Weinstein.
Here.
Beth McClellan. Here.
Okay. Second item on the agenda is opportunity for visitors to speak. Seeing as there are none, we will move on to item 3, which is approved minutes of the February 22nd, 2019 Personnel Policy Committee meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 22nd Personnel Policy Committee meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing as there's none, roll call, please.
Thomas Duffy.
Aye.
Emily Swiestack.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Aye. No, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Item 4 on the agenda.
I apologize. I think sometimes we do a voice.
Yeah,
Right, and sometimes not.
Yeah, sometimes you roll call.
Item 4 on the agenda is LLD Policy 300 Library Cards, discussion, revision, and draft. I'll pass it over to the director.
Okay, so in your packet, there are 2 drafts. One shows of Policy 300. One shows all of the edits, and the other is a clean version for easier reading. And this is our existing policy already. We can walk through it together. It's regarding library cards, and so at the very beginning, we have a title change with introduction. We just changed the title there because we don't need policy, and a very basic introduction. Any questions on that, or do we want to change any language there? We can move on. So you can stop me at any time. Then I broke down it into A, B, C, and D. So we start out with changing the title to district taxpayers, and then it's a more descriptive title for all of A, B, C, D, and E. And then moving down through number 1, we just provided some better grammar there. Number 2, that actually is untrue, the previous statement. We do have online pre-registration, so we changed that language. 3 is just better grammar. And then 4, same thing. 5 and 6 we've eliminated and created a completely new category for minors, just breaking out scenarios for the minors. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, B, 1, 2, 3, 4 breaks those things down. Is there any questions about A or B?
I have a question.
Sure.
Regarding A 2 and 3,
Yes.
just doesn't, it's not that important, but why wouldn't we say that we're going to verify at the time of registration? We have 2 different steps. If you see number 3, proof of residency upon finalization, why wouldn't we do that up front and get that step automatically verified? Just
In the pre-registration?
okay.
I don't understand the
well,
question.
Number 2, card registrations are finalized, and but they may pre-register.
Yes.
Okay. And number 3, okay, I guess it's redundant, but I took it as we're not verifying residency until the finalization of the card registration.
That's true, because most people will bring in their property tax bill or mail and things like that in person. We have to finalize that in person.
Okay. Well, if they came in, I understand if online, how would you prove your residency? But if they came in, and I think it would save a step just to have that. I mean, why would you be applying if you didn't have proof of residency?
Because I don't think online you can't go through the whole
Yeah,
process.
it's
No,
just-
that's what I just said,
Yeah.
online, but if they came in person, it's not it's not that important.
I get what you're saying, though. Well, I think what you read is patrons may pre-register for a library card online via website, and then, but proof of residency is required upon finalization of card registration, because that no, point number 3 really only applies to if you pre-register, because if you come into the physical building to do the registration, you're gonna provide that
Exactly.
proof of
It's
residency.
not.
So is it the word order? Do you think that it would help to
Probably.
tweak the word order to make it clearer?
Yeah,
Tom can be my interpreter.
yeah.
How
But
would you like it
I
to
mean, I
read?
think that's what you're getting at, is that it
Yeah,
just seemed.
yeah, and it's not vital, just
Well, how would
my
you,
question.
how would you like it to read? I mean, we can make that change right now, that's why we're here. And it's also for renewals, so all renewals, you have to have proof of
Proof of
residency too.
I suppose it's not that important that they do it at,
You as well, may I,
Go
would
ahead.
it be something like, however, patrons may pre-register online via the Lisle LLD website for a library card? Is that what?
I mean, unless you just want to switch the order of the two clauses in number 2. Patrons may pre-register for a library card online via the LLD website, and then, however, card registrations must be finalized by LLD staff.
Does that sound
Yeah,
I mean,
better?
yeah, would be
does that
cleaner.
help you? Because
Yeah,
then-
that's a little,
Because then it's,
Got that.
then it leads into that number 3. I mean, if
right,
that-
right.
Because I do think you want to make sure that someone understands, hey, when you do the pre-registration, which I imagine it's on there now.
Right.
But when you come in,
You still have to come in
yeah,
and
come in with
prove it.
something like,
Okay, we'll just
Flip it?
flip it.
Right. Thanks.
Okay. And any comments, discussion points regarding the district minor language?
on point 3, I would maybe just say multiple residences, not limiting it just to 2. I know it's a minor one, but.
Yeah.
And then I have a question in general, which is, so we require minors to have a library card. Is that in essence just to track? But we don't require, but
it.
they can get one if they
Yeah.
want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So I don't have a question, and that actually clarifies exactly
Yeah.
what I was thinking in my head.
Okay.
Like my kids have them because they were really excited that they could have their own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was, oh, I got my first
But
library
don't lose
card.
it, because we'll find it. Yeah.
Right.
and then I had a question on number 4, where it says, with the understanding of, that the card holder is responsible for all materials checked out on a minor's card. So does that mean like the minor's responsible?
No, the
No, the
signatory.
signatory, so that's the parent
Wait.
guardian.
But that's the one where, no, but it says, isn't that the one where the director could grant provisional access to minors? So do you need parental permission or something still on number 4? Oh, okay, I thought it was,
I read it to be that we're responsible. So like, let's say for something happened and for some reason, one of my children was granted this provisional access. I'm still liable for that material that's checked out
Okay.
because
She's
I'm the
signing
one who
off on
signed
it.
off on it.
okay, well then I guess then, what situation? Because I guess the way I understood is like if there was like, if you had an issue
Let's
at
say-
home,
let's
so
say-
you could kind, not, I don't want to say, so you don't need a parent to sign off, so you could give like temporary provisional access, but you're saying there still need a parental signature at the
Oh,
time?
yeah.
So-
Oh, yeah. So
then
like
what-
if a grandparent came and lived with
Okay.
a family member, we could, or if the grandparent stayed here and the grandchildren came to visit the grandparent could, let's say they're staying for the summer.
Okay.
And the grandchildren are visiting in Lisle.
Okay.
We could grant these children provisional access for 2 months.
Okay.
Per the grandmother signing off on the
Oh,
card.
okay, gotcha.
It would be a
gotcha,
limited
gotcha,
card.
Oh, gotcha, okay, that makes sense, okay, now I got it.
On point 4, though, I guess I took signatory as a little bit different too initially, and now I know it's parent/signatory. Can we?
Caregiver.
Yeah, can we change it maybe to say with the understanding that the parent signatory for the card is responsible for all materials checked out on the minor's card?
Say it again?
So with the understanding that the parent
Slash legal guardian, like what is in
legal
number
guardian.
1?
Well, whatever is in 3 and 4 should just correspond, because we have parent/signatory up there.
Oh, parent/signatory, okay.
Okay.
So maybe it should just say legal guardian/signatory, or, or it's just
Caregiver.
signatory, caregiver. But it's really like, I would say that,
Clarifies it?
or just say clarifies that the parent/signatory is responsible,
It's
not
not
the
the
minor.
kid,
Yeah.
yes, okay, so maybe do we like parent/signatory, or do we want caregiver, do we want legal guardian? Because we've been using parent slash.
So there's parent/legal guardian, and then there's parent/signatory, and then there's just signatory.
Which
So
we like.
do we want it to be
I
uniform
would
in all of them?
I would say parent slash legal guardian slash signatory. You can just put all three of them in there because it kind of encompasses all three.
Yeah, because that's how I thought it meant, like the minor was signing the
I
card.
gotcha.
So,
Well, that's why we're
so,
here.
Yep. So,
Okay, so parent, legal, and signatory, okay.
Yeah, and I just would make sure wherever signatory is in here, that it all just flows the same.
Okay. All right, moving on to C, there is a new law regarding non-resident taxpayers, and so we've changed the language in, for this to include people who lease property now may obtain a library card, and also it may be more than one person who may obtain a library card, and I think that's the only change there in terms of the, that one law. Any questions?
When you refer to commercial lease, I assume that applies to like offices,
Yes.
business centers.
And that's straight from the statute. I just used the same language there.
Okay, would the specific owner be the one that is issued the library card, or would anyone
The person
residing
who's
in that?
Yes, the person who's
office?
leasing may also receive
But,
persons.
okay, so
leasing.
if I lease a business center,
Mm-hmm.
and there are many people that use it, it's only the owner that owns the business
It's a
center?
person who's on the lease.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
so
They bring in the copy of their
They
lease.
couldn't delegate an employee, say they're gonna.
Exactly.
No,
That's what I'm getting at.
No,
So it's only like,
person on the lease.
okay.
Okay.
And it could be more than one, if it's a couple or if it's a
Gotcha.
group.
For point C, point 4,
Mm-hmm.
how do we define 1 year? Is it 1 year from the issuance of
Yes.
the card?
Yes.
Can we clarify that in there?
Yes. Good point. Okay, and then non-resident option instead of policy and fees. This is just a better arrangement of the points, language, and grammar. And then the last mention is also that all members of the household, that language was never in there before. We put that in there because that's indeed true. If someone purchases a card, all members of the household receive a card.
What are the fees?
Say it again?
What are the fees for a non-resident?
It's you use the tax bill method, which I should have printed it out for you, but it's on our website.
Okay.
It's
So
a
it's that
formula.
formula, right?
It's a formula that they use per your house's assessed value, and then they multiply it by the number that the county gives us, and then it's.
Can we reference that within this policy then? Maybe for point 5, non-resident annual fee affords, blah, blah, blah. Please reference document X for how this fee is.
It's on number
determined.
3.
Number 3, okay.
It does reference the statute.
Perfect. I'm good.
Okay.
I just had to read 2 points above. again. Margie's looking at me like, what's going on?
Okay.
I thought I was the only one that did that, so I don't.
Just let me do it for you.
Right.
And then lastly, regarding the responsibilities, this is where technology has kind of surpassed us in terms of our current practices, where our cards being transferable or not is kind of defunct because our kiosks now allow for any card holder to use them. And it solves our family card issue. We've had this discussion at board meetings where either one of the parents comes in with each other's card, and where our cards say now they're not transferable, we want to presume that if you issue your card to somebody, you're giving permission to use the card. And as I mentioned, our kiosks right now don't differentiate between the user and the card holder. And whereas staff, per this policy, have to say, no, we can't allow that to happen. The other thing is that our new app that we'll be issuing in the next couple of months, they will allow for a barcode to be downloaded to your device. So a family member can have a few barcodes on their device and use it, whether it's your iPad or your phone. So again, I think we need to uptick ourselves into our current technologies. And The other thing is we want to not have barriers to our use of our materials. And if staff are saying, we can't allow the parent or guardian to use it because it's somebody else's card, we're putting up a block. We don't want to do that. We want to encourage use. So that's why that non-transferable is being eliminated. And the rest is generally just language.
We do have a spelling.
Oh, we do?
On number
Yes.
4,
Where
card, last sentence of
Says
number
cared
4.
instead of
cared.
card.
And then it's also on a clean copy, but.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's on both, yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
I have it marked
I
too.
know you, I see that.
Good eye. Instead of cared, it should be card.
And number
Last
2.
line.
Number 2.
Number 2.
E2.
And then on the
Me
clean
too.
draft, it's on page 8.
Okay, gotcha. There it is. I was looking at the
E2.
word. E2.
E2, right here. E, responsibilities. 2.
Because you,
In the clean.
Oh, in the
remove
clean
one.
one.
In the original,
Yeah,
it's,
I'm
well, it was
sorry, I
still
didn't
E.
explain.
It was E, but it was 4.
4, that's right. Okay, I got it. I got it.
E4 in the original.
So with these changes, so we can move this forward because of the new law, as long as we change these things, are we comfortable with moving this?
Yeah, and then just formatting wise.
Yeah.
You can, do you see all my little arrows?
Yes, obviously. We will change that.
I did have one question,
Justifying
which
consent.
is, say, going back to the minor, say the minor doesn't return on that card, the stuff doesn't return to that. Is the block then also applied to the parent? Because I know we talk about how it's the parent signatory has the fees attached to it, but is that card also blocked?
Not the parents.
Not the parents, okay.
No, I speak from experience.
Yeah,
I've had to pay for books that my children have lost.
that's what I
So
figured.
their card's blocked, but yeah, mine
Yeah,
hasn't.
okay. That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, so then we can, oh wait, so if we're all comfortable, can we do a voice vote that we're in agreement of moving forward with this draft to the July board meeting?
Yep, yes.
Can we do a voice vote then? Should we do roll call or
You
just?
just say.
Just say
Voice
Say
vote?
it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
You got it.
Good. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5, LLD Policy 201, Board of Trustees Code of Conduct and Ethics Discussion/draft.
Yes, so this is a new policy draft. It is already referenced within the newly adopted Policy 200, the board bylaws. It's referenced in Article 13. I've provided the same examples that were provided to the prior committee, and those should aid us in our discussion here. I drafted this Policy 201 using a lot of elements from a lot of the examples. And I've also added some prior discussion points from prior meetings. And so I just want everybody to understand, we can add, we can subtract, we can enhance, improve what's here. So this is for you to discuss and how you want this board code of conduct and ethics policy to look like. So I started out with an introduction, moved on to some statutes and laws that we follow when we reference ethics. And then we move into authority, rights, and powers. I'm just going quickly now, and then we'll track back. And then C is administrative office, and we talk about space and where trustees can conduct business in the offices. Then we move on to representation, and we can retitle these to something else. Representation is in regards to campaigning and restrictions regarding politicking. E is decorum, so this is mostly about appropriate behavior and expectations of trustees. And then we move into the relationship between the director and the board, procedures regarding like information for trustees, and then lastly is breaches of the code of conduct. So let's start at the top again. Any conversation about the introduction or changes? Do we like it?
Changes to it.
Okay. How about, I think the law's the law, but do we have any comments on the legislation/compliance section?
So, this is gonna come up just the whole way through, so just based on, formatting, like there's some spots where there's periods at the end and some where there's not, and so then.
Thought I got them all.
So.
I see it.
So do you see it under A3, but
Yeah.
then like later on, when there's multiple sentences, then there's like a period and then there's like not at the end, and I just don't know.
Well, you tell me at the end how you like
How we
it,
wanna do
and
it.
we'll format it the way we want it.
Got it.
Okay.
And should, for like A3 where it's open meet, should we also include FOIA? Freedom of Information Act, 'cause I mean, we gotta comply with FOIA too. I mean, it's a lot of times things that go hand in hand. Do you want to add FOIA to that? Or
Just that
not?
we're aware of
Yeah.
it, that,
Or just
Yeah.
is open, I mean, it's.
Sure. What kind of sentence would you like?
I would
Just
just,
that
I would
same
just
kind of
say like
sentence?
Open Meetings Act / Freedom of Information Act, whatever the statute citation is.
I don't think, I thought about that. I don't think I
Yeah.
added it because, first of all, it's a.
We're not the FOIA officer.
I'm the FOIA
Yeah.
Right.
officer, and the board isn't involved in that process.
Right.
Correct.
And
Unless
also,
we have to provide you emails.
but that's on, I mean, staff
But
or so you,
personal,
yes,
yeah,
true. And the other reason I didn't is because you're not required to take that Attorney General,
Training.
training, but you are for the OMA, and that's why I put the OMA
I
there.
thought we had to
Okay.
do FOIA training.
You don't have to, it's not required. It's optional. It's optional.
Is it?
Yeah.
I would relabel this compliance, but then I would remove legislation, but I would add FOIA, because we should be compliant anytime a FOIA request comes in that we are part
That,
of.
like, applies to us.
That applies to us. So this is getting to the compliance of all the regulations of being a board, on the board.
Okay. I have no doubt we're not going to be moving this to the next board meeting,
No.
so we can bring this back for another
Yeah.
draft. And I can put something in there regarding FOIA, and then you can
We'll take it out
take a
next
stab
time.
at it.
Yeah.
yeah, this will not be ready.
Okay. Any other comments about, does everybody like the term compliance as a title instead of legislative / compliance? Do we just like compliance?
I think
I
it's
just want
fine.
to put compliance of legislation, but either or, that's not a big deal
I
to me.
think it's
I
fine.
think
Yeah,
it's
that's
fine.
fine.
Fine,
So
what?
just do,
Compliance is
As you
fine.
have.
just.
Or as legislation / compliance?
Yes.
I'm fine with
Whatever.
this. Marcia's trying to, no, I am completely fine with legislation / compliance. I think maybe then a sentence that introduces this to the effect of that this section addresses what trustees must be compliant in, or something to that effect. Just one sentence telling us, like, as you read this, why these are chosen, and then what each specific one is.
Okay.
So here's the question though, just based on what you were just saying, is because in her introductory paragraph, it does say the LOD Board of Trustees shall act in accordance with all local, state, and federal statutes, which,
Right.
that's what those are, the statutes.
So maybe you actually move that sentence down into that section.
To have that be with
Yeah.
that, so instead of an introductory paragraph at the top,
Yeah.
put it underneath
Yeah, it's
the,
explaining that. Are there any ordinances also that affect compliance of this board? Because we have legislation here, but if there are any ordinances, we'd also want to list them too. Not that I'm aware of any other ones.
Because we can enact ordinances as we wish. I mean, there are some general ones we do every year, but you could do new ones too. So having them here listed might not make sense.
Yeah, we'd be more like the ones that are to the spirit of this. Other ordinances wouldn't apply. I mean, I'm making this too complicated. Legislation / compliance is good. What you have listed is fine. Maybe,
The one sentence regarding compliance, or do we want to move that one down? Do you want to move that sentence down?
no. I want to cut what I said, because I think what we have is good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm open.
No,
It's fine. I mean,
you're fine. No,
this is the
as I
whole point
thought,
of this meeting,
as I
is
thought
just
through
to
this, I'm
discuss
making it
those.
way too complicated. This is very good as it is.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Taking that out.
I'll save all my other comments to section D now.
All right. Okay, moving on to authority, we can change the title. We start out with basically discussion and decisions regarding board meetings, so there's an A, B, C, D, E. And then there's a point regarding our branding and our logo use. And then we move on to C. So under authority, what do we have? What do we want to change?
1E, I think it needs to be, because it says the authority to administer board policy rests with the director. It makes it sound like the director
I have the
is,
same question.
is like
I think-
enforcing with the board. I think what you were, because I talked to you briefly, I think you're saying that the director is there to enforce the policies not these policies per se, but other policies of the library, correct?
Yeah, and I think that's straight from one of the examples, that the director enforces the policies that the board adopts. I mean, we can reword that.
I think the key word is administer.
Yeah.
You don't set it.
Yeah.
You administer the board policy.
Should it be?
Because I had a question until you defined administer versus you're not setting it.
Should it
Right, 'cause the
be,
board
should it
sets
maybe
policies.
be then in section F under the director? Would that make more sense?
That's more about the relationship
That's what how I read
between,
the relationship.
between the board and this, I mean,
So
we
then-
Is it
can
the word
reword this.
administer that is throwing
Well,
people off?
well, I mean, it just seems, because it says, yeah, maybe it's just the way I'm reading it, like it's how it sounds like the authority to administer board policy rests with the director. And,
And I think the point of that in the other policies from which I pulled
Yeah.
this is that the board creates the policies, director administers policies via staff,
Right.
via, you know.
Mhm.
So like the circulation policy we just will pass, you don't administer that.
Right.
I do via the staff.
Yeah.
So we can reword this.
Yeah, maybe that can be, this one can be a 2-sentence one, where what you kind of just said. You
Okay.
can kind of walk it through in the 2 sentences and.
Explain it more.
It's more
Explain.
explicit,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, that makes sense.
And then on the one above, on D, official decisions shall be based on fact rather than supposition or public favor. If anything, I think it should just probably be official decisions shall be based on fact. I don't know if we need that last part of it. And, I mean, I don't know if I don't have a problem keeping that. I mean, what I just read out, the last part, I don't know, because, like, when you say public favor, what do you mean?
This isn't my language, I pulled it from some of the
Oh,
examples.
okay, okay.
But I think I think the inference is that you're doing it as a favor for a special interest or something
Well, I
of
know
that nature.
Somewhere, I can't remember where it's got somewhat special interest somewhere else.
Or just to gain
Yeah.
notoriety,
Right.
or just to gain popularity,
Okay.
and, you know,
Well-
we could just strike this completely, or we
Well,
can
I
reword
mean,
it.
even that one, I don't even know if we need a D to begin with, but I could at least live with official decision shall be based on fact. Because I mean, you know, that's what I mean with public, that's why I was looking for clarification, because, you know, the way maybe I'm reading it wrong, you know, I'm thinking, you know, we're here to serve the public, so if the
Of course.
public wants, they're saying, like, in mass, say, we don't want this, or we want this, and we vote on some, you know, against their wishes, so that's why I'm a little, I don't know if I don't.
The language isn't
Yeah,
clear
yeah,
enough.
I see
yeah,
what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so I don't know if that last part, I mean, I don't even know if we need D to begin with, but if, at least I'm okay with official decision shall be based on fact. The last part, I think we'd probably cut out, at least.
Others' thoughts? What do you think?
I mean, I agree, it's fine to streamline the language. I think the question I keep coming to my head is, you know, decisions can be made that don't have facts
Yeah,
or,
sure. I thought, yeah.
but I know what you're trying to get at
Yeah.
with this point. What you're basically saying is, do not, from a special interest standpoint,
Yeah.
Right.
make that decision on that.
Correct. That's what I mean, I
Right.
don't even know if we needed D to begin with, because I thought the same thing, but it's like, you know, I mean, again, what he just said, you know, I get the fact that there's sometimes, I don't know if they're.
Where
It's a
was
fact,
that point on special interest?
Yeah,
Because
That
I
was
remember-
more like politicking.
Yeah,
Right.
that's somewhere
But
else.
I want to come back to that B1 is about decision-making, so maybe we don't need D as written, but maybe there's another sentence that goes there regarding decision-making, or do we not want anything regarding kind of special interest decision-making?
I know that there's.
Yeah.
I remember, it's somewhere here, obviously, with special interest or partisan groups.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't need it under this category, I was trying to break, and it was hard because of all of these examples, like which
Yeah.
categories do we have?
Yeah.
Do we have an
Right.
authority category, or do we have a branding category? Do we have a representation category? It was hard to do. Some of them overlap in terms of like the principles we're talking about here, so.
Well,
And maybe we cover it already under the representation category.
yeah.
I think we should strike all of D.
Okay.
And then we can come back to it
Yeah, in case-
next time.
And maybe something needs to be added up.
Yeah, I wanna
B
kinda
or
see what else
something,
looks
right?
like.
Yeah, so
Okay.
get rid of it for
Okay.
now.
I have a question with, oh no, you already did that. Are we done with one? I'm sorry, because I had a question on 2.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry. Okay, so in 2, with the branding and the logo, I just was hoping you could give some examples about B. So like with the personal, political, or financial gain, like how would you use the logo for financial gain?
I'm putting a logo on a t-shirt and I'm selling it.
Oh, got it, okay. For yourself?
Yeah.
Got it, okay.
And C on that, where it says utilization of the LLD logo shall be limited to board authorized uses, should it be library authorized uses?
Well, this is for trustees.
Okay.
So this is a trustee code of conduct and ethics.
Okay.
And I think already in our a staff policy for staff, anything communicatively, yeah, like we promote or communications, it's filtered through me or my designee.
Well, I guess the reason I think maybe, I mean, it's discussion, is just with library, because it's more encompassing, because the board, I mean, if we authorize it, it's the library in turn is authorizing it too, of course. And then there might be some things where there's a hole where the board hasn't authorized something, but the library hasn't authorized it, you as a director, so maybe it should just be library authorized? I mean, I'm okay if you want to keep it board authorized too, that's fine, because I get it, it's board.
But this is for the trustees. Like, this is
It's like,
their
so
code
it's
of
for
conduct.
us.
Okay.
So like if us as the 7 members of the board
Okay,
can use it as opposed to the library using it for
all right.
library things.
Can I streamline this section though? The official logo of LLD is proprietary to LLD and shall be limited to board authorized use. If it's unauthorized, doesn't matter if it's personal, political, or financial, it's only if it's authorized then it's allowed to be used. So we we could strike B completely and just have one point underneath there.
But then we would only have an A.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But we're
It
gonna
doesn't have
move
to be an
that.
A, it could just be a.
We're gonna move this though. I know. I think we could probably find a place to put this in somewhere else, but I think we can, it's just a little less words.
Or it could just
Like,
be 2
combine
branding,
it.
it doesn't even
Yeah.
have to have anything
Yeah.
underneath it, is that what
Yeah,
you're
just a
saying?
sentence.
Just a sentence with number 2.
Yeah.
Branding LD logo.
Yeah, the official logo of the LLD is proprietary and then.
Because if it's
Shall
not
be
board
limited to.
authorized, then it's not gonna be, then those other ones don't
Yeah.
apply.
That makes sense.
Okay.
So how is that rated again? So you're just combining the 3?
Yeah,
So
I
get rid of
would
B.
A and C are
Yeah.
gonna be 1.
A and C are gonna be 1, so B still.
be struck because if it's not board authorized, it doesn't matter if it's personal or political or financial. So the board has to authorize the use of the logo. If it's anything outside of
As a
that.
whole,
As a
yes. Yeah,
whole.
as a whole.
Anything outside of that, it doesn't matter what. Yeah, I think.
That makes sense. Okay.
So you think B is gonna be, is still, I mean, it's just implied with.
Yeah.
Well, because if it's not, because we have to authorize it, right? So that's what Tom is saying, is that the board has to authorize the use of it. So by
So
authorizing the use of it,
if a board member goes rogue and does something that's not board authorized, that's against policy. Or do you want, you're trying to you want a kind of a enforceable?
I don't, I mean,
Second
I could
sentence?
see A and C being combined, I kinda still like B a little bit.
Could you?
Because
put
what
in-
the board authorizes, yeah, you could use it for political I don't know.
But
The political.
Do you think the board would, well, maybe,
Well,
I don't know.
You never know.
You never know,
You know what?
right, you never
You know
know.
what though? Now I agree with Tom, because I think that,
That's why we're.
yeah.
having this discussion.
No, I agree, because that, you have a good point, because then if the board authorized
Yeah.
for a political purpose, it is board authorized.
Or even financial.
Financial,
like, okay,
yeah.
we could all sell T-shirts.
Yeah, so I think now B should be in there, yeah.
Okay.
Others?
But,
Or-
yeah.
Would it suffice to just put in parentheses as an example, personal, political, financial gain?
I think keeping it as a, I
Okay,
would keep,
no, I'm
yeah,
just
no,
asking.
that's fine. And then, but you could still combine probably A and C though, right? Or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So it's back in.
A-
back in.
So B is in,
Step.
A and C will be combined, pretty much.
I already had crossed it off.
Yeah.
Me too, I drew a line through it.
Okay. And remember, we're gonna have any number of second shots at this.
yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
Don't worry. Okay, so C is about the administrative office space, and this is mostly about where and how, not how, but where the trustees can conduct their business.
I appreciate this because I've always wondered about if I came during the day and I wanted to do the bill stuff, like, wait, but if some people are working, where am I gonna go? So I appreciate that it's spelled out
I
here.
always just sit at a desk, I usually don't sit at this
I-
sign the bill.
Yeah, see, and I purposely just don't come
Yeah, I usually do.
when people are working, so.
No, you're welcome to come.
I know, but so now it's nice that it's spelled out and that it's here and that we know.
Number 2,
Okay.
why do we specify adult guests? Are we saying we could bring our children in?
Well, this is for discussion. So if we had a trustee who had, let's say, a newborn in a
Newborn,
carry cage.
yes, I understand, okay.
So here's my example, if we had a newborn in a carriage, like,
Mm-hmm.
what are we gonna say? You can't put or if you have a 2-year-old who's a toddler, do we want, so I threw that in there for discussion purposes.
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel about it?
I see what Marge is asking, but I think I know, because I know there's been times, I remember, there's been trustees like just running in to get their packet or whatever, and they've got their children with them. You're not gonna tell the kids, small kids to
It's
stay.
one
out.
thing if you're running to
Correct.
get your packet, if you're
Yeah.
approving bills. I don't think you want a toddler, my opinion. We know how toddlers can get away from us. We're sitting there looking at bills and a child. I mean, we have specific mentionings of using employees' desks, and not disrupting. So if you're sitting at a desk approving bills and the toddler is roaming, they might be sitting at another employee's desk. I don't know that
How can we word
not the end of
this?
the world, but
What makes sense for everybody?
How about say trustees shall not bring guests within the office
This is
while reviewing financial information or records or whatever we use in like the bills or whatever it's used.
Should we
there.
just say
accounts payable?
Trustees shall not bring in guests, and just strike adult, is that enough, or?
yeah. And I understand there's exceptions. I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what we're
Yeah,
gonna be
that's-
careful
yeah,
with
that's
too,
what-
though,
that would
because,
seem-
you
yeah.
know
No,
what I mean?
right.
Like, if we're saying they can't bring guests in, and then there is a situation where someone has a small child and
Right.
they cannot say, stay right outside of the
Sure,
office and I
and-
walk in to get my, get stuff, then,
Would, is there a bigger problem? Actually, I would almost, would it be a bigger problem if somebody brought in a guest, let's say, kids or whatever, like on off hours, is that actually even more of a concern when there's no supervision, if you will? Or like from staff is not there, or, I don't know.
That's where I'm coming from,
Yeah.
really, with this, like on weekends, because most
Yeah.
of you
Right.
would probably come in on a weekend or an
Right.
evening.
which is what I was just saying,
Yeah.
like, I try to come
So I
to do
guess
that
that's-
stuff when people aren't here, so
So-
don't disturb them.
It's not such a big issue necessarily if there's a guest adult or child while staff is here, it's in the off hours. This is probably more for.
Well, it's for every
Well, like,
hours,
yeah.
but I think it happens primarily on
the
off
weekends
hours.
Or off hours.
I put adult in there, making a provision for very young children.
If you, how about, shall not bring adult guest within the office, may bring in children as long as they're supervised?
Well, I
We
think
would
with
assume
them
they're
is
supervised.
supervised, yeah.
We assume they are.
I'm just trying to,
Maybe it's fine how it's just written. I'm trying to think of ways
Yeah.
to word it differently,
Yeah.
and it just may be that this is a code of ethics.
Yeah.
So there is sort of this, okay, I have a 3.5-year-old son. I have to make that appropriate decision. Should I bring him with me? And if I do, and it's disruptive, then of course there has to be that. Okay,
That
And then
responsibility.
in
that
the
responsibility
future,
to
then
it,
maybe
and I
you
won't
can-
do it. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do think like maybe it's just written away, because I agree, I don't think getting maybe too
Yeah.
detailed is just too
You
much.
can't parse it out to like
maybe
newborn
you just wanna-
versus
just wanna
3-year-old.
keep it as is, and, I mean, we haven't had a problem to my knowledge, at least since I've been here with this, so as long as there's not a problem, I mean, if something in the future happens, that a future board could address that if it becomes a situation.
Well, I think Tom
I
makes a
agree
good
with
point regarding responsibility.
Oh, sure.
You're responsible for everything your child checks on a card. You're
No,
gonna
I
be
agree.
responsible
Right.
if you bring your child
Yeah.
into the office and he or she messes
Yeah.
up somebody else's desk.
Yeah.
That's your
Right,
responsibility, so.
Right.
That's- so-
I'm fine with leaving it in, I just wanted to make that point.
No,
Yeah,
it's
no,
a
it's a good point.
It's a fair point. It's a very good point.
Anything else under C? Okay. D is representation, and we can change that title, and this is mostly in regards to campaigning, politicking, mostly restrictive, but we can expand, we can,
On number 8,
okay.
what do we define as duty? And I think you probably took that from another document.
I
right?
did, the other terms that were used was compensated time. We could use that terminology. On duty means basically punching in, while you're on punch-in time.
So I know this is duty
This is
based right
duty.
now, but yeah, I just wanted to make, I just wanted to make sure, like, that was something that I just want to make sure it was defined. for
Well,
them.
we can be more clear in terms of the definition if others feel like we need that. We could use the term compensated time, but other people see that as, that could be, another definition.
Yeah, they could
Right.
come on off hours, like on
Yeah,
their
yeah.
personal time.
Also,
Right.
then, how would you clarify, I don't know if the business world is different than the library world, but when you're on break and you're on lunch,
That's not compensated time.
that's not, so that's my point, if you're sitting at your desk.
Oh, yeah, it is, for us it is. But like in business world, if you go out to
Well,
McDonald's or
but-
whatever.
But where I formerly worked, we had a huge discussion about social media on company time.
Mm-hmm.
And the employee brought the argument that when I'm on my lunch, that's my time.
Mm-hmm.
But they're using the business's computer.
So,
So if you solicit
Sure.
a political
Mm-hmm.
contribution, you're campaigning for someone, well, I
Maybe,
don't
yeah.
know that, I think we need to
On
address
duty,
it.
I think covers
and
it.
I would say maybe something with library resources. So like you can't use like our computers,
I think it
Right.
says.
And it does say-
Well,
Okay.
There's something about library
for us,
resources.
I'm not sure.
It's for
Somewhere?
trustees.
Oh.
Trustees,
I was
yeah.
gonna say there's,
So that's
Using
probably
funds and
within there.
supplies.
I don't have it.
It's in our employee
Yeah, I don't-
handbook already.
Yeah.
So they
Okay.
can't use library resources even in
For-
lunch breaks or off personal time.
For politicking.
Yeah. They
No.
can't use, yeah, okay, because I should think it's law too, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
Well, then can we actually, since this is only a trustee document, on number 8, that first sentence only applies to LLD employees,
Right.
not
And
trustees.
this was something Beth and I were going
Yeah, I'm
over, because how do we set up the second sentence? So trustees shall not misappropriate the services of any LLD employee by requiring or implying they perform such activities as part of their duties or as condition of employment, and then show the examples. And we wanted to say, we aren't allowed to perform these
Correct.
activities. So like, how do you?
Yeah, I actually like
set
it
it up.
there because it actually reinforces it too. but I know what you're saying, because you're right, it's employee-based, not trustee-based, but.
But it's.
I
But it's
kinda-
about the
Comes
trustees
after.
Yeah.
asking
Correct.
employees
It's-
to
yeah.
do this
Right.
for their purposes or friends' purposes or whatever. So it was a hard sentence to
Yeah.
construct.
I guess so, and I imagine this is probably the lines in the handbook. So when you read the first sentence, it's talking about when they're in essence at work. But as you read the rest of that, it implies that they're almost like some of the stuff they would not, is it that all the stuff after that is when they were at work? Or is it when they're even out of work that they couldn't do this stuff?
No, they can do it out of work.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because it's a little unclear, in maybe how I read it, but now that I think as we've talked through it, I'm fine with it.
The on duty is the
The on duty is the key.
thing, is the
Yeah.
key, yes.
Is there, and you said that there's something in the staff handbook about this as well, right?
Yeah, it's either in social media or it's.
I'm just wondering if we can reference like
The employee
the,
section.
that employee section, that employee policy, like that states it so that they can see that it's tied in to another spot.
I think then you get into in terms of this policy, then you get into the kind of the gray area between, is this for employees or is this for, you know what I'm saying? Trustees. Because this is really for the trustee, this is about
This
the
is
trustees,
basically
not
us
asking.
saying trustees cannot go to the staff and say, you need to do this.
Yeah, pass out my
For me,
flyer.
yeah.
You know, that's really what it's about. And that's why I was very.
I see
how
what
do
you're
I-
saying.
Should I even put this employee thing in there? So,
So maybe it should just start with trustees shall not, instead of that first one, the one that's currently first, maybe it should be trustees shall not misappropriate the services. And then that, you know, about the prohibited activity.
I can try
employees.
and, I tried doing this before. I will try it again. I will just put
I'm
a big
just
star
thinking-
next to
yeah,
this
and I'm just
one.
thinking having it start with trustee, just because all the other ones start with trustees.
Yeah.
So it's like, because it's what we're not supposed to do.
Yes, I
So
agree.
trustees shall not do this, and then give the information. The employees
Because
are not, right, because
this.
this is a, you know, prohibited political activity.
Okay.
Yeah, because that second sentence just says, trustees shall not misappropriate the services of any LLD
Right.
employee. It doesn't say LLD employee on duty, doesn't say so you have to have that on duty somewhere.
Somewhere.
Right.
As the
Yeah.
qualifier for the employee status.
Yeah, okay, I will do a little flip and see.
Some kind of wordsmithing
But
there.
that
Yes.
first sentence is still gonna be in there somewhere, though?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, because we need to have that on duty, they can't engage in that
Yeah.
prohibited political activity
So
while
you're
on
just,
duty.
you're just putting it in new order, but
Yeah.
it's still there, okay.
okay. Anything else in representation
The
category?
only, I think it's state law, so it might be repetitive, but, where it says trustees shall not accept campaign contributions from vendors, is there something with the gift policy too?
We have a gift ban policy.
Okay, that's, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought, okay.
So I had one, and goes back to your comment, Tom, about the factual stuff. And I know it's in the social media policy, but that's only social media, which is, I thought something here, a public trustee comments in a public forum or public manner should be based upon fact.
Okay,
Because this is under the representation of this, so it's not necessarily just when you're in the board meeting, because that was what that first section talked to on the authority. So this was the other one. I know that's kind of I don't know how to thread that needle, but I think the whole idea is you don't want to misrepresent
Right.
board.
It's
Isn't it
in
decorum?
decorum, it's in the next section, E, decorum, number 8. But I see what you're saying about representation, so then it's, because it is in decorum 8.
maybe that goes under representation instead of decorum.
Yeah, I think that would be a good move to just do. So that's E8 would move to D.
To D.
And do trustees get a list of all LLD vendors throughout the year?
It's in your board packets, you see the vendors that we But we also have, on the website, there's a list of the yearly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't there like an annual thing?
Okay, so there is something that's publicly available to us to
Yeah.
ensure.
Do we have to
that-
publish it in the newspaper?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
You know what, and in D representation two and number 3, it also says, outside of a board meeting when stating an opinion about LLD matters, trustees shall disclose that their views or opinions are especially their own and not of the board, which kind of ties into that social media thing as well.
It does. It's a very, there's
I
two
know it's
parts
hard.
though, right? It's
I
like I
know.
could express my opinion. I'm allowed to do
Right.
that as that.
Right.
And I say that that's my opinion.
Right,
And I can use facts to that opinion.
right,
But what if I don't use facts, but it's my opinion, I say it's my opinion?
right,
Well, I have technically then misrepresented the board and the libraries, like whatever that topic is.
Right.
So there is that component there,
Right.
it's a two parts.
you're right, yeah, because then the decorum 8 talks more about that factual stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't say facts, but I mean, that's what it is.
Maybe it goes after that one. I can renumber it. Instead of making it a number 10, we can go after the 3.
After 3.
Like E8 should go after 3, maybe.
But I do think that word fact is important there, just as during the board decisions.
Yeah, having something fact or factual included in it.
Okay, I think I got that. Are we done with representation? Moving on to decorum. No notes?
I have, not really, I mean, I had a comma. I'm not worried about that right now.
Is it formatting?
Yeah, it was just a comma, it was a comma, well, no, because there's the Oxford comma all over the place and then not in one of them.
Which one? What
In,
did I miss?
in
I always
six.
think of you.
In 6.
Okay, 6.
After personnel,
Okay. There we go.
me and that Oxford comma.
I agree with point 10, but I don't necessarily know it's a decorum.
Yeah, I was just looking, I was gonna hung up your.
I want to put
Oh.
it somewhere, but I can't help you, Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I want to, I like 10, I think I would almost put the word innovation in there somewhere, to kind of really push the thinking, but I don't think it's a decorum-based.
Yeah, you're right.
I was there, I was reading, I was like, I don't, you're right, I was like, I don't know how that, so just strike it,
Yeah, I would strike it,
put it somewhere.
put it somewhere,
I don't know if it would fit under anything else.
Move it
maybe,
or strike it.
yeah, maybe authority. I could see that, but I can't. I didn't want to bring it up unless I also had an option to put it somewhere, so.
Okay.
But that's okay, I mean, because if we don't, agree with something, then we can certainly strike it, or we can, move it, that's why it's a draft. right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not married to anything here, so it's fine. Are we good with E? Are we moving?
Yep.
Okay, F, director, this is the relationship between myself and the board, and I pulled these from the examples there. We can subtract, edit, rearrange.
I had no comments on this
No,
one.
Maybe
the
there.
only thing is, like the one I was looking at back on the authority, that E1 with the authority to administer board policy rests with the director, but that's fine, I'm okay where it's at.
Okay.
Um,
That'll be
yeah,
reworded too.
Yeah, so I'm okay, I had nothing for this section.
Marjorie, did you have anything?
I'm good,
Okay.
yes.
And then the last one is just the consequences should there be policy breaches. And there's just really 2.
I have a question. Do we discuss here how breaches are processed or decided?
Can talk about that, for sure. That could
Or
be added.
Should we just put,
Before I get into
Okay,
trouble
go
here.
ahead. Go ahead.
You're gonna get into trouble.
I'm not sure if this is the forum to discuss
Procedure?
past instances.
Okay.
I'm trying to tread carefully here. I think we know what I'm referring
Yeah.
to. I was not at all pleased with the process and the timing of the process. It's past history, I'm not arguing it now, it's a done deal. I would like to address
Like
the process.
The process, okay. That's
makes
fair.
sense.
That's
Let's
fair.
address it.
So I
Yeah,
was gonna say.
that makes sense.
It makes sense, because actually, kind of what I was thinking with these 2 points almost seem like they just went right to the almost as like it skipped the whole, because I was gonna at least say, just to, even to keep it simple, but I agree there should maybe be a process laid out, like any dereliction of duty may result up to official resolution, like, it's not like it's censure or nothing. I mean, I don't know what else there is in
Well,
between,
what else
but
is there?
I guess that's the truth.
But
of it,
maybe-
yeah. But the process is.
Go ahead, Tom.
yeah.
I like the idea, but maybe separating the process from, like, this isn't a process document, being a policy of code of ethics, but having almost a separate document that outlines, okay, if you hop into this process, this is the steps.
I totally
And we
agree.
flush that out as much as possible.
So almost like, remember how we created the grievance, like, procedure?
But that's policy.
That is policy, right?
So I wanted to make
But
point.
but like, that's, we went through
We
the
did.
whole thing about how that would
Hold on.
go down.
Sexual harassment, okay? We, in our policy, and this is for board and staff, there are steps. And what you do, documentation, proper action, if the harasser is a trustee, if the harasser is staff, if the harasser,
Are
then
we
the steps
talking
you
about
take.
sexual harassment?
Right, we're
But-
just
but
looking
she's
at another
using
policy that.
it as
Example.
an Example, yeah.
Is,
so-
as in the procedure
As a
and
guide.
how you know,
Okay.
go through
Okay.
that
So
is
we
in our
put- We
policy.
put the procedure inside the policy.
So when staff and trustees get their policy manual, they understand the steps they need to take if this happens. So,
So we could put the procedure then in this
But-
policy.
and it doesn't have to be extensive. It can be, 1 ABC, 2
But-
ABC.
but I-
Right.
I don't know, maybe I'm putting words in Marge's mouth, but I think what you're trying to allude to, like, there should be how it goes about, like, should the board first agree, yeah, we're gonna censure somebody, then we draft a censure, and then you censure them at a, so like, almost like you have
Well,
two
like
meetings.
I realize trustee, it's not a personnel policy.
Yeah.
But with any organization, there's the process of, as an example, verbal warnings, written warnings.
Yeah, well, and that kind of goes.
We go to the full
Yeah.
vote to censure
Yeah.
or terminate.
Well,
And
the
I
written
think-
warning is the censure, really.
Well, yeah, but I think, I know what Marge is saying, that's where I was kind of reading, like, man, this is, like, up to, where I was thinking,
Well, it
like.
says
put
may
up
result
to-
in, so-
Yes. So, like, is there like a verbal warning first? And if
Well-
that doesn't work, then there's the censure.
I'm coming from the timing again, I
Yeah.
mentioned that before. There were public comments made, open when the public had the right to speak. There were board discussions. Okay. I had no idea, I can only speak for myself, and again, I hope this is not the inappropriate forum. I had no idea that censure was coming. None, until I got my packet 5 days before that meeting. Okay. I understand we discuss it at the board meeting, and I also understand we had a special session for that. The argument being, we had no process. It was on the agenda. I questioned the then president. I realize one trustee can ask for, or two can ask for something to be on the agenda, and it's put on the agenda. That's fine. But I had personally, and maybe my fault, I had no idea we were at that point. That's all I'm indicating. So if there was a process where this had been discussed and we were leading towards that, I'm comfortable with that. You know, I'm not arguing about the decision that it was made. I'm
Just
arguing about
the process.
how I got there.
Well, that-
Right, we never had a
that-
policy.
That's
No.
kind of how, what I was at, so would you want it where, like the first meeting, like, so instead of how we did the censure at that time, maybe that meeting should have been, or is the majority of the board in agreement that we should pursue a censure, and then the next meeting, so the following month, you would actually vote on the censure? Or is that too
Well, like
long,
any-
too
like-
long, too
like-
drawn out? Because it is a month in between, that's the only problem, so then it's, you know, I don't know. I
Well,
mean,
but in that interim, is there any steps, would there be any possibility, let's just say I was doing something that I shouldn't be doing as a trustee. For me, if I was given a warning by the attorney, I would certainly cease and desist.
I know what you're saying, like, it just, it like was there, basically, so you're talking about you're talking about the process.
Right,
like
the
how
process.
it goes about.
I can only compare it to my
Yeah.
business experience,
Yeah.
not a personal experience. I was never terminated from
Now, are
anything.
you also arguing
But-
like there should be like the verbal warning and then, like you're saying, the
Well,
written warning here is
a
essential.
public verbal warning, yes, somehow. I mean, I can only speak, I used to be in HR way back in the beginning. And there were specific guidelines we needed to follow in order to, in other words, censure. It's not quite termination, but, and I don't know that we have that process here, so I won't be leaving.
Well, I think one part of that process is creating a code of conduct and ethics
Correct.
policy.
Correct.
Right.
Right?
And that's the other part of that, and I'm trying to stay away from past our history here because we should really be just thinking objectively.
Yeah.
Right.
So part of the trustee facts file, that's part of the process of understanding roles and responsibilities and expectations. And this policy is part of that. But I agree with Marjorie that having kind of a procedure in here that's, you know, not expansive, but that lists out steps. But what are those steps? I think we should talk about that.
Right.
You know, I wrote down here verbal censure, written censure. I don't,
Yeah.
because you're gonna have to take a vote on this.
No, I-
You know,
Right.
but
No, no,
it's
It's tough, it's
and
tough,
that
it's
may
not
be-
like, yeah, I mean, it's, because then even if you do the, when I kind of throw out that starts really dragging out the process.
And if there are some breaches that have been addressed in public meetings that lead to censure, I mean, you're having your public meetings
Oh,
that have already
yeah.
been, you know, things have been discussed at public meeting already that
Yeah.
lead to this.
And I guess maybe the other, I don't know if this, maybe this is me then, you know, I guess it says may result up to whatever. Because if you probably break one of these, you're not gonna get censured, unless it's one of the bigger ones. You know, I guess that could be relative, everybody might have a different opinion, what's the big one or bigger ones.
Or if it's a
But-
continuation,
Correct. So
repeated
it's more of a
offenses.
Repeated, right.
offenses
Repeated.
when you get to that point. It's not typically the first one you're getting censured unless it's a major
Well, and I, you know,
violation.
part of it too is though, you know, is it something that, you know, it starts with the president. The president
Yeah,
talks to the trustee and says, hey,
yeah.
you know, I don't know, who
Yeah.
does it come from
So-
initially? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, I guess
so
that's part of it
would
too.
have to probably be the president unless it is the president.
Yeah,
And
it
we
would-
have
Right.
that, like you were referring
With
to,
that
there's a
harassment
template we could use. So I mean, that's something maybe we should consider. I mean, we probably can't nail it down here, but maybe something we should think about, like a process, like the president speaks to the trustee.
Unless it's the
something.
president
Unless-
who
yes.
is, and then it's who?
Yeah.
Then it's the
And
vice
then
The
president.
vice president.
Vice president or the personnel policy chair, is it vice president or, I don't remember which one we decided,
We
but.
did.
It was personal policy, but I think we took that out, actually.
think we
Okay.
did.
And then it's this and whatever, then, but maybe sometimes you do have to cut to the chase right out of the box and go straight to censure on a rare occasion, I don't know.
Right.
I mean,
For
so,
sure.
I mean, I don't know, we
Right.
gotta, I mean, but I know what you're saying, maybe we should think about that in the future of a process.
And
I
like,
don't-
where does it start?
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
where does it start?
Right.
Yeah.
I think another library went through this up in Park Ridge, and they got to a situation where one of the trustees' actions was impacting the community. And so I believe, I'm not sure about this, but I think they actually called a special meeting.
You could do that too.
And so if they felt like
To discuss it?
between meetings was too long,
Yeah.
because we only meet once a month, if the action was impacting, like Tom said, factual material being put out or something, then they wanted it corrected and not wait for another month to go by.
Right.
So you could call a special meeting.
So that could be like, and I think that's good information
Yeah.
if a new trustee comes on board to understand that
Yeah.
these are the things that can happen should there be like flagrant breaches or persistent breaches, and this may happen.
Yeah.
We may have a special meeting. There may be a censure.
Right,
Da-da-da. I'll come up with some kind of process.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
that sounds
We
good.
can pick it apart.
That sounds great. Thank you for bringing that up, Marjorie.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Anything else on that one? Okay. Item number 6 on the agenda is LLD policy 830, employee and volunteer reference / background checks, discussion and draft.
Okay, so this would be a new policy for us. We currently do perform background checks on specific employees, but we don't have a written policy. So we contract with HR Source, which was previously known as Management Association, and they recommend we have a policy in place. So I've drafted this policy. It also includes language for those who volunteer because, as I've mentioned at previous board meetings, before we move forward with a more comprehensive adult volunteer program, I want to make sure that we include language in our, I want a new volunteer policy, first of all. I also want I want volunteers included in the background checks. So, provided some supplemental documentation regarding HR Source in your packet too. And there's also very specific laws in regards to background checks. So that's how this came to be.
Okay.
Yes.
When you do background checks on adults, is it for anywhere in the, like, if they're working down in adult services, obviously youth services, you would definitely do a background check. but
We have contact
no
with
matter-
children no matter where we're at.
But that's true, I guess. So if there's
Yep.
okay.
Okay, so this is fresh, this is straight from, we looked at other policies, we asked HR Source to send us some example policies, so that's how this is kind of broken down. So it's up for grabs. We have an introduction here, it talks about us being a safe and secure environment. And before extending an offer, we would conduct a detailed reference and or background check. So sometimes it's about reference checks, sometimes it's a full background checks of adult applicants, and then we define what an adult under up to 18 years of age or older. And then everything is contingent upon the clear results of a background check. And then we go into what is a reference check, and that's done by staff. And then the background checks, we use a third party. And then these are the things that it may include, okay? So 1 through 5. And then additional background checks regarding if it's applicable to the position. So like credit checks, it's generally for people who are handling money. And then we move into the current employees and or volunteers that we can perform intermittent background checks throughout their tenure here. And then it goes through the procedures. So do we want to talk about any of these?
The one I have
Points?
a question on is, do we hire people with like a criminal background? I mean, if it's minor offenses, do we hire people or? Yes, no?
Do we?
Yeah.
We can. It depends on the offense.
Yeah,
So I think that's listed here yes, the nature. So if you look under criminal history,
Okay,
it
so
says the
yeah,
nature,
okay.
we would use this criteria.
and that's, I guess, where I was just asking, so we do.
So if someone
we
committed a
are-
crime
we-
40 years ago,
and it's
we would take
relatively
that
minor.
into consideration.
Yeah, okay, so they're eligible to be hired, whether we hire them still. Okay.
The background check information, how is it stored on premises?
It is in a separate, I think it's here. It's that we will, under procedure, it's under D6, maintained in a separate file from employee or personnel files, and we keep them for a minimum of 7 years.
Who has access to that file?
The financial director.
Is it locked, fireproof, all that good stuff?
Fireproof cabinet with all the employee files.
I would-
But it would be administrative staff. I mean, I could access it, the finance director, and the finance director is the one who's in charge of accessing the database.
I
Do you
would
want
outline that.
delineated?
Yeah, just saying who has access to this information. And then with the background check information that you do collect for an employee and a volunteer, so the employee, it's 7 years. Should we have something on a volunteer for 7 years?
It's,
Because this is titled employee and volunteer background checks. Do we want 7 years? Like, do we want to hold on to something for a volunteer that maybe volunteered once or twice for 7 years, or can we make it less?
well, part of that is contingent on the Illinois Records Retention
Okay.
Act.
I didn't know if that
And I think the standard is 7 years for personnel, which may also include volunteer, but this has to go through our attorney. All of this
Yeah.
has to. So after today, after our conversation and our edits and our adds and our subtracts, I will send it to our attorney and he will look through everything here
Okay.
regarding that number 7.
And then just another, the credit history, is that only for
Financial
people? So
staff.
it's not all the
It's not
staff.
gonna be
So,
volunteers.
well, but even if it's staff, is it just like for, like the finance department, or would you?
It's for anyone who handles money,
Which is pretty much just the finance department.
pretty
right?
much, yeah.
Okay. Although, dude,
Circulation
I was gonna
handles money,
say,
because when
I was
they
gonna say,
accept
sure.
fines and.
I guess you're right, that, I was gonna say, I guess if you wanna get technical, I
That's
mean.
minimum.
The 8
Yeah.
directors, department directors have credit cards if they got spending.
We do, they do it with the credit cards, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, all right. So there is it just the finance director? There are other people?
Oh, yeah.
That handle
Okay.
it.
Yeah, the finance clerk.
Sure, okay.
So I would thread this out a little bit more, because since we have this policy that has employees and volunteers, so when we talk about credit history, we're mentioning candidate. So clearly, I think that means employee, but it could maybe not, because they are a candidate for a volunteer, because they're going through an approval process. And so I think we want to make sure that it's clear that credit history is being looked at if you are a candidate for employment at LLD and you meet these criteria for it, such as handling money, financial information. Because if I'm a candidate for a volunteer, you know, yes, I may not be handling money, but I don't know, right? Like, I don't know, I'm just in the process of doing this, and we want to make sure that's a little clearer.
Okay, so employee only and financial transaction employee. I'm just writing notes.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else in this draft that,
I have a question on B,
okay?
under 5, criminal history. Would there be any reason to, I would assume that you would know what the infraction was. Would there be any reason to know what the sentence was? Only because I think generally people form conclusions as to, okay, say your first offense, you're usually not convicted of something.
Or not.
If
They
it's a
don't throw the book
misdemeanor.
at you. Yeah, they don't throw the
Yeah.
book at you.
So I guess we clarify misdemeanor or an actual conviction. Conviction to me, what, are you convicted of a misdemeanor? Are you convicted of a
Felony.
felony? Is there any degree that you would, let's just say 16-year-old kid took a tube of lipstick and it's on your record.
Does,
This doesn't apply to a 16-year-old.
well,
Okay.
but is a criminal, does it
Is
show
it-
like it does show felony convictions, right?
It'll show you anything.
Okay.
Okay, so you would know that by identifying, okay. Good.
Can I ask a question on this sheet too?
Oh, yeah.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, we can go anywhere.
Well, I don't know if anybody else have a question. Okay, I don't know.
Which one?
No, on page 53,
Okay.
where it's got that notice regarding background checks authorized by a Minnesota, Oklahoma, California, Maine applicant. Do we need that?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
If
Even
you
though-
lived in Minnesota, that's where your record could be coming from.
yeah. And they have their own
Gotcha.
state law.
Okay,
So
okay, that makes sense now, okay.
then going back to the credit thing. So this is an LLD document for volunteers.
Okay, let me go there.
Are you 52?
52, yeah,
Okay.
so. I actually thought these were together, I apologize. So I'll stop before, if we haven't had any questions on 53 still.
Go ahead.
We talk about consumer report defined as, and then we go into what the consumer report is, which is a credit report on the volunteer document.
Yeah, this is a boilerplate language from HR source. We can change anything on here, so,
I would just align it to whatever we are gonna pull on a volunteer, then just align it to that.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is just to apprise you of what it could look like, and this is straight from,
And then on page 57, unless the very top is in Spanish, is that supposed to be in Spanish? Or should be English, or should be English and Spanish?
what does yours look like?
It just says, for information in Spanish, go to that website, or write to that address
I think it's just-
to get it. It's just,
Yeah,
it's
but
just
but
if
is
people
that like
need
the
to.
beginning of a page? Because the page 56 is this form. Is this
You
together?
know, what
56?
didn't transfer in this packet is that HR source.
Oh, I don't have a 56. Oh, yes, I do, it's right here.
Yeah.
I moved it out already.
Yes, I mean, there's something out of
So
order.
this one, I think it.
That's what I was wondering.
That's the one.
It goes this page,
Then this one's stuck
this
in.
one, and then. so I
Okay,
think
Yeah.
it's
that
this.
makes sense,
Yeah.
okay, because that's what I was figuring, so I'm like, this was a weird beginning regardless. So that's what I figured, that these pages just maybe get out of order, which is,
I missed that one.
Someone call Chris.
Yeah.
no, because that's what I was thinking it would happen, but
Okay, I
I
see
thought
what-
I'm like,
yeah.
is it, okay.
But this has a 1 at the bottom.
That's what I mean.
So bizarre. Okay,
Something
well, we
that's
can yell at Chris.
No, but I don't know if there's
I
a
think
page-
this is its
Yeah,
own
it
separate
itself.
document.
That's right.
It just, yeah, this
Yeah,
is fed
snuck
in.
it, which is, that's what I didn't know, if that's what happened, or if this was something, so that's fine.
Okay.
Or if there's a page missing,
This is just for our information.
I understand.
This is
I
not,
was
this is not included as a form or
Yeah.
anything like
So I
that.
thought
It's
maybe it is
just to,
the top of a new page, I don't know, so, all right.
Oh, then there is
Yeah.
page 2.
Because it's,
Okay.
yeah,
But I was
that's about
impressed,
the.
I was impressed though I could kind of read and figure out what it was saying too.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, they're just telling you how to get the information.
Is the application, the authorization for background check, is the information then entered into a database?
It is.
Okay, and that is also, I imagine.
That's a
meets all
third-party
age.
proprietary,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
And then we receive a report via that database.
And then this is part of what's stored in
Yes.
the paper.
Anything else with policy 830? Outside of the, it's mostly concerns about the volunteer and credit checks, we got that information. And then on the form as well.
So do we want to move it forward, or we want to see it one more time?
It has, she said it has to go to the
Okay.
attorney.
Yeah, it has to
Oh,
go to
'cause
the
it's got one
attorney.
more, so it goes to him,
So-
and we'll look at it.
Well, we can look at it again. Okay, so,
Well, I don't want to jump ahead.
depending on the next meeting, I was going to suggest another personnel policy committee meeting sometime in July, if we can make it happen, after the board meeting, obviously. And then we can move it forward to the August board meeting for passing.
That's fine.
And then I can launch, and in the August board meeting, we will also, if we have another personnel policy in July, we could have a draft of a volunteer policy, which is just a basic policy we need to update. We already have a volunteer policy, it's just outdated. It needs to be a little fleshed out. We can talk about that volunteer policy and the new forms in our July board meeting, move it to August with this background check stuff as covered by our attorney,
Okay.
and then our new policy for volunteers and forms, and then we can launch a new volunteer program, maybe end of July, end of August, beginning of September, something like that. So that's kind of my timeline, because we have to run this by our attorney. So, this is still in draft form. And our next committee meeting can happen on, we can do it again on a Friday at 3, or we can do it on a Wednesday. We've got Friday the 12th, which is immediately after our next board meeting, or we can do it Wednesday, July 24th at 7 PM, or Friday, July 26th. And I prefer either the 24th or 26th, just because it gives me a little time to draft up some stuff.
That is the week that we were potentially gonna be gone, because it's the last week before we can, like
I won't be here
vacation.
either on the 26th.
Yeah,
How about the 24th? No?
that's the week that we would be
Okay.
able to go away,
Okay.
because we haven't been able to yet.
Do you want to do the 12th at 3? It's a Friday.
I can do that, I don't know about anyone else.
Could we do it a little bit later on a Friday? I could do like maybe 3:30, 4 PM.
That's fine.
Yeah.
3:30, 4?
4
What
would
do
be
we like?
preferred if that's okay.
I'm gonna do 4.
Does that work for you, Marjorie?
I will make it work. I hate Fridays, but
Fridays start the weekend, why do you hate
That's
Fridays?
why I-
Oh,
I
got it.
I want to
early.
start
This
my
way, Friday.
weekends on Thursday evening.
Well, this one shouldn't
It won't be as
too
long.
long. It won't be long.
Okay.
That's funny.
We said 4?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put it on my calendar and have it end at 5, so, sorry, it'll just be an hour.
I like that.
So
Max.
Friday, July 12th at 4 o'clock. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so if there's nothing else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 4:21 PM.
Thank you.